Means is former LAPD Sergeant Cheryl Dorsey, who spent 20 years on the job. Cheryl joins us this morning. Cheryl, good morning and welcome. Let's get right into it. Talk a little bit about what it entails when we say defund the police, and are you in favor of it?
When I hear defunding the police, I'm hearing things that have nothing to do with actually preserving life. If they had taken money away from the Minneapolis Police Department, for instance, redirected it, would that have any impact on Derek Chauvin sitting on George Floyd's neck for 8 minutes and 46 seconds? Would that have had any impact in the 18 previous personnel complaints that he had collected like chiclets, and the department failed to do anything, failed to take any action? There needs to be accountability, and it's real simple. If you find an officer who's violated policy, if you find an officer who's using excessive force that's contradictory to their training, terminate them, get them off the job. And if these young people want to work hard to get something done, how about attacking the post? Police officers' standards and training certification that allows an officer who does commit misconduct, like the one in Hollenbeck Division, who's now being charged with excessively assaulting a homeless man, remove his post certification so he can't, should he retire, go to another police department or resign, move on.
You know, it's interesting you brought up the Minneapolis Police Department, the city council there in Minneapolis. They don't want to just defund the police. They want to dismantle the police. They really want to take it a step further. Also, the mayor has proposed slashing the LAPD budget fund, which is interesting because originally he wanted a 7% increase in the LAPD budget. And then the killing of George Floyd happened, the protests happened, and things changed. With this, the cuts that he's proposing, do you see that effectively benefiting the community? Is that enough? $150 million. Also money being directed to programs within the community.
Certainly it would benefit the community, but what we are asking for, I'm assuming, is stopping officers from killing us. And so the way you do that is when you identify an officer who has a proclivity to violence, who does things that are contradictory to training and policy, get them off the department. You know, over in Ferguson, that police department consisted of many what I call misfit toys from the Jennings Police Department, which had been completely disbanded. They broke it up. And guess what? All the officers who were taken who were unemployed because of the disbanding of Jennings Police Department in Missouri went over to Ferguson Police Department. So just merely shutting down a police department and then casting those same errant officers to the wind is not going to solve the problem if they land on another police department.
And before we move on here, one thing I want to address is the public safety aspect, because I'm seeing on social media a lot of people concerned about what this means to safety. The police union, as well as the police chief and the sheriff, have said that if you cut funds to the police department, it's going to impact how crime is investigated, delayed response to 911 calls, that sort of thing. Is that true? Will that really have an impact on the day-to-day public safety?
I believe it will. And listen, let's not pretend that there isn't a certain segment of society who's out there cheering for fewer police officers, for less funding, because those people will be waiting in the wind as well to now victimize folks who are unable to provide for themselves, homeless folks who are out there and incapable of taking care of themselves. There are people who are going to prey on innocent victims who won't have the capacity to defend themselves, and we won't have the personnel to respond.
Cheryl, I want you to talk a little bit about the culture of the LAPD. What has changed since you've been there, since you were there? I also want to maybe you talk about the 1992 riots. There's a lot that has happened since then.
I would say not much has changed in terms of police culture, not only on LAPD, but across the 18,000 police departments nationally. Police culture is systemic. It's been around since the beginning of time. And listen, every police chief, Michael Moore included, was once a police officer. And so he understands that, you know, officers are out there misbehaving and that they've gotten better and more savvy at trying to minimize and mitigate that bad behavior, explain it away. And I heard someone talk earlier with regards to if now there isn't a recording, we almost, unfortunately, sadly, can't trust anything that comes out of a police officer's mouth with regards to what it was that led up to a use of force, because we've seen too many instances in these protests, officers committing assaults, battering folks, beating people up, and then lying. 75-year-old man said he fell down, he tripped, when we know that he was shoved. We saw an officer say that somehow Mr. Floyd deserved to die because he was non-compliant, which was a lie. And so it's culture, and that's why it's so important to root out those bad actors. Absent that, this will continue.
And Cheryl, in about 20 seconds, if you can tell me what needs to be done locally or maybe even on a national level.
Locally, understand every police chief serves at the pleasure of a mayor. District attorneys are elected. I see DA Lacey today for the first time in her career as a DA is finally going to prosecute a police officer. There is an election coming up, and so maybe that has something to do with it. And so if you're not happy with the level of service that you're receiving from your local police officials, mayors, elected officials, then you know what to do. Go to the ballot box and make your voice be heard there.
Cheryl, thank you.